Hey guys, welcome to the episode of Coffee is for Closers. It's just me and James today.
AKA Batman and Robin. How are we, guys?
Batman and Robin. Who's who?
Well,
I think we know who's who.
I wear a mask at night, so.
If I were your fucking partner, I'd make you wear a mask during the day.
She's at work during the day, so it doesn't really concern her.
Fantastic.
If you listen to this podcast, you will make your first $1 million within 3 years. I'm going to repeat that. You will make $1 million within 3 years of the first episode you listen to. We don't want pikers. We're not here to save the manatees. We're here to make podcasts. You really want this. You listen and review.
Put that coffee down.
All right, cool. So today what we are going over is we are going over stories, analogies, and selling tools that can help you reframe somebody's ideas and their mindset around buying and change. So good fun, good times had by all.
And give perspective, which is very, very important.
Yeah, perspective is key. If you're looking at my hand and if you're looking at it from this way or that way, you see different things. So I was actually doing a live training this morning. And we were doing sprint role plays, which is, for those of you who don't know, where you role play a certain part of the script. So you just get someone in and go, okay, cool. Yeah, it's just started. Just pick up the phone, start going. Or it's like, okay, you've pitched and now you've gone through the whole presentation part and now it's time for the person to give you an objection. So let's go with that. So I did that. And the amount of times that people made assumptions was crazy, and assumptions will kill your deal because it's all based on perspective. So if your perspective is one way and their perspective is another, the words that they say you're going to interpret in a different way than what they actually mean. So by not clarifying and probing on what they're actually saying, you're going to start going down a line of questioning, which is based off your thought process, not theirs, which is pretty unproductive in the long term.
100%. All right. So analogies, storytelling. What do we want to rip into first? Maybe let's go into the differences between the two and how and why you would use them in a sales call.
Yeah. So I think the great thing about like analogies and stories is the fact that they can just put things into someone's own vernacular. So I'll give you an example of deflection that kind of works on people, that gives them a different perspective. It's kind of like an analogy. So if you get someone on the phone and they're just, all right, yeah, man, I just really want to know what the price is. And you're like, hey, man, like I'm more than happy to go through all that with you. At this stage, it might be more appropriate to find out a little bit more about you and your business to see if we can actually help. And if they're like, no, I just want to know the price. Then you go, okay, man, do you mind if I just ask you a question? Like, what do you do for a living? And they go, oh, I'm a mechanic. And go, all right, man, like how much to fix my car? And they go, what? And you go, man, I haven't got time, man. I just want to know how much to fix my car. What kind of car is it? Bro, I just need to know how much. And they kind of go, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. And I've done that loads of times. And 99 times out of 100, that person is like, okay, that all makes sense. I understand now because it's in their wheelhouse and they understand that they couldn't provide a quote or a service without the relevant information, just in the same way that you can't provide a quote or a service without the right information. Yeah. So that's why I really like putting things into other people's language.
Yeah, totally.
It's just a really effective way to get them to see something differently. And the only way that we can sell somebody is to get them to see things differently, essentially. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so stories. I think I answered the question, actually.
No, not at all.
Tangent. So a story is a piece from your life that you might then equate to something that they're doing now. So like if they're buying coaching and they're really apprehensive, you might talk about a time that you bought coaching that you were super apprehensive, show some level of vulnerability. We're going to do a whole podcast on tactical vulnerability, but
won't go into that today.
Yeah. We'll just explain it because it's all part of the storytelling process. It's basically like you have a story where it's like your nightmare story, and then you tell it in a way that allows people to really empathize with you because you've shown vulnerability, then they'll show vulnerability. And so that's the whole premise of it. But you're telling a story that allows them to align with you and how difficult it was for you to make the decision, which normalizes the feelings of them feeling that way, but then allows them to see sort of some of the potential benefit outcomes of going through that. You can also use testimonial stories for the same way. One of the ones that I used to use all the time with fitness was my sister was a single mom with 2 kids, and she was super overweight. And then she would come to me and she's like, I need to lose weight. And I'd say, you need to do this, this, and this. And then she would go, I don't have time. I got the kids. I'm a single mom. I go, okay, that sucks, but your circumstances don't change what you have to do to get the outcomes you want. That's just the way it is. There's no sort of single mom program where it's eat whatever you want and train once a week and lose 30 kilos. Like, it's not how it works. And so she came back to me 6 months later and I was like, okay, like do this, this, and this, same 3 things. And she was like, I can't do it. And I was like, okay, stay fat. What do I care? I'm fine. And then again, 6 months later, so it's been 18 months now. She's like, okay, what do I need to do? And I was like, this, this, and this. She goes, okay. And she did it. Nothing in her life changed. Her job wasn't different. Her status wasn't different. Her kids weren't any different. Everything was the same. But she'd reached the point in her life where she wanted to do it. And she lost, I want to say 40 or 50 kilos over the next 12 months. And that was just because she'd made a shift from understanding that her current circumstances can't be what limits her into moving forward, because everyone's current circumstances limit them from moving forward. There's 10,000 reasons not to do something, but there only has to be one really good reason to do something. And if it means something to you, then you'll make it work. And so that story, it's about a person who's in a bad situation. So most people aren't single moms who need to lose 50 kilos. Mm-hmm. It aligns and goes, okay, shit, I'm nowhere near that bad, because everyone's got reasons to not do stuff. And if you just say that's no excuse, people just kind of dig in and say, well, yes, it is. And you go, well, no, it's not. And they say, well, yes, it is. So storytelling is a way to kind of get a point across without having to be too combative, but with trying to get a principle across the line, like an overarching principle, for them to understand things from a different perspective.
Okay. And is it something that you put into each call you take, or you sort of pick and choose when and where to use that?
No, it's like a break in case of emergency.
Okay. For the listeners, how do you determine that that emergency needs to be utilized?
It's if they're not getting, if all the answers that I'm getting are super surface level. So
Okay.
if they're just crazy surface level and you can just sort of feel, this just kind of feels like it's not really going anywhere, and it's just kind of diddly bopping along, and there's no difference in tone, or they're just kind of saying what they think you want to hear, you got to kind of pause it and go, hang on a second. Or it's at the very end of a call when somebody's really struggling to overcome a fear-based objection.
Okay.
So those are the 2 times that I would use it. Analogies are pretty similar. Analogies I use a lot more, because I think analogies are just a great way to get a point across where somebody can sort of really visualize what you're trying to say.
Okay. So you would preemptively utilize analogies and postemptively use a storytelling if needed.
I think so. Yeah. So I tend to use storytelling because I don't like to go on, as much as I love to go on tangents in my day-to-day life, I don't like to go on tangents in my sales calls. Try and really, really keep to script as much as I can in terms of like the sequence that I want to talk in. And then stories can kind of take you down a couple of rabbit holes, but so I try and avoid them unless I'm really trying to do something in particular.
Yeah, so it's just another quiver
Yeah,
for
another
the bow, right?
Yeah, another arrow in the quiver. Yeah.
I butchered
that's
that.
That's a good analogy.
Well,
There's an arrow in the quiver.
Not the way
you
I
fucked
explained
it, but yeah, another quiver in the bow. Just trying to shoot these big fucking cardboard things. Yeah.
Oh, Batman doesn't use arrows.
Green Arrow does though. He's fucking badass too.
Yeah,
That's a good show on Netflix for those of you. Hey, if you're gonna watch a good show on Netflix, as a total side note, which I think is really good, it's called Teenage Bounty Hunters. The star is my cousin. So there you go.
Oh, really?
Her name
There you
is
go.
Maddie Phillips. Yeah.
Get
So
on
shout out to
Ozark.
Maddie Phillips. No, get on to my cousin's show, you piece of shit. Are you trying to shark my airtime? What fucking skin in the game have you got? Yeah, so analogies are another good one, right? So I use analogies a lot because I think it allows people to just really easily see things from a different perspective. My favorite analogy is one that I got from Taylor Welch's podcast. which was during a live training they were doing for their staff. And he said, and I actually used it today in a role play. I used it a lot. If someone's having a real rough time and giving you kind of like, I just really need to think about it, this is probably the best analogy that I've heard for it. And I've used it a lot, and it's made me a lot of money. So shout out to Taylor Welch for giving me this analogy. And it was, okay, so there's two analogies. The first one is more of a loop. The second one's more of an analogy. But it's like, so do you feel are you happy with your current situation? And they go, no. And you go, when it comes to whatever it is you're talking about, whether it's business or fitness or weight loss, whatever. And then you go, okay, and do you feel your, I guess, mindset has affected your sort of decision making around this area of your life? Well, yeah, because there's no other way to say it. There's no way to say no to that. And then it's like, well, do you want that decision making process to, I guess, dictate the results that you get moving forward? And they're just like, oh, no. It's like, okay, so I guess, how do we proceed today to make sure that you put yourself in the best position to be able to break those habits that you have? What's an appropriate next step for you? And a lot of people sign up from that. It's really powerful because it's a really good reframe. It's more of a reframe now that I think about it. But it's a reframe and a logic trap put together.
Well, let's define the differences.
So a reframe is where you're trying to establish. They're very similar. A reframe is where you're trying to establish a known within the conversation. Like, this is the known element. So the context of everything else drips off that. Mm-hmm. And then a logic trap is where you ask a series of questions with only one logical answer based off the first question.
Yeah, it sounds like a combination of the both.
Yeah, it's really powerful, especially when delivered the right way.
Yeah, for sure. I see that not necessarily being an analogy, but I can see how you can get that very confused with an analogy that you use, and I've heard you use very often. And
the beach?
No, the obese person. Around similar to mindset. So this one's really good analogy that you utilize, and it almost takes the elements there of that logic chap and that reframe and puts it into the analogy without posing a less direct question, which you would then ask post analogy, right? So why don't you run through and go through that whole obesity? Very similar to what we just explained.
Yeah, you're talking about the one where you can't trust their own decisions, that one?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So basically, people come to get coaching. I actually just did a whole YouTube video on this analogy. So it's like 8 minutes long, kind of goes into depth as to why people get coaching. And essentially, people get coaching because they
link in description.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe. It depends on when they get released. It's all pre-planned. So people get coaching because they fundamentally do not make good choices around the area in which they're trying to improve through the coaching. Mm-hmm. So first of all, you have to establish that as a known element. So that's the framework that from sales, we have to kind of all work from. Salespeople have to acknowledge this, because if you don't acknowledge that fact, then you're going to buy into the prospect's narrative, and you're going to let them get away with things like think about it objections or partner objections, which is essentially you giving up on them, really. And so if we come at it from the framework of they make bad decisions, if somebody is obese, they make bad decisions around nutrition and training. That's just what they do. There's no argument. If you are perpetually broke, I hate to break it to you, if you're the first time anyone has told you this on this podcast, you make bad decisions around money. That's just the way it is. So what we have to do is use that and then try and move them forward. So that's why objection handling needs to be like a powerful tool in your bag that you have to be good at, because these people are not just going to give up. They will give up on themselves. Let's put it that way. So we have to be armed with the ability to make the noises that come out of our face be effective at changing the person's mind, even just for an instant, enough to them to make a commitment. And when they've made a commitment and they pay, they now have an obligation to something else and to themselves, which causes them to then do the steps they need out of obligation to get the result. Nobody's truly motivated until they get a result. I don't care what anybody says. If you were truly motivated to lose weight, you would have woken up this morning and you would have gone for a 10-mile run. Did you do that? No, then you're not motivated. So you got to replace the motivation with obligation. And when you pay attention. So if I was just to give you a PDF right now with a nutrition and training plan, would you follow it? Probably not. So we need that level of accountability, don't we? Yes. Okay. So this is what we need. And let's take them through the journey and get the commitment on the day. And when they do come up with an objection, we have to handle that effectively and get them out of the state and into a buying state, because it's that instant where they make the choice to commit and pay. That's when they start the journey, because they're starting to act like the person they need to be to get the outcomes they want. If you're standing on the beach, if you're on level ground, you can see 17.1 nautical miles around you, like roughly 15 miles, I think, maybe 18 miles. And so that's all you can see in the world. So if you never do anything else, if you never go higher, then you can't see anything else. So your perspective is always constantly limited to what's the world around you. But if you want to see more, you have to go to the top of the mountain. Now, what do you have to do to go to the top of the mountain? You have to buy boots. You have to plan a trip. You have to invest in training so you can get up the fucking mountain. You have to pre-plan and prepare. If you want to get to the top of Everest, there's a lot of shit that you have to do. So there's a day where you have to start acting like the person who's already done it. And that's the only way that you ever actually make a change, is to become a skinny person in a fat person's body, to become a successful entrepreneur in a broke person's body. You have to start making those choices. And that's essentially what sales is. And that was a super roundabout way. And there was like 45 analogies in there. But that's the shit, that's the kind of like rambles that go on when people are having really, really hard times getting over that first step. And it's those analogies. And you have to make decisions in different ways if you want to be different.
Okay.
If you have a broken decision-making process, you cannot default back to that process. When people tell you, oh, like this is just how I make decisions, and go, well, mate, are you happy with where you're at? No. So you want to keep using that same decision-making process forever that's caused you to be in exactly where you are right now, where you need help to move on? If you drive the same way to work every single day and someone says, hey, if you go that way, it's 10 minutes shorter, and you just go, nope, this is how I drive to work. You're a fucking idiot.
It's true.
You're just an idiot. So we have to find ways to get people out of that. And those ways they've always done things. And analogies are a great way for somebody to be able to hang on to a concept and visualize it into something bigger. And when something is absurd, always making decisions in the same way, that's an absurd concept on the face of it. Because if you're presented with different data, you should change the way you do things. And so by presenting like, oh, I always drive to work that way. It's like, well, it's shorter to go that way. No, I always do it that way. Okay, so, but do you want to get to work in less time? Yes, I do. Okay, they need to go that way. No, but I go that way. Okay, well, that's stupid. Yeah, you're an idiot. So, okay. Anyway, that was a fucking rant.
Yeah. How do you judge the effectiveness there when you're actually putting that analogy in place if you're using multiple in the same structure?
Well, I think obviously it's part of, that was a very one-sided conversation. It wouldn't be that one-sided, and I would do temp checks and ask them to check in and ask them what they felt about it. And I would stop when I felt like I had the right amount of commitment and I wasn't just monologuing and I guess boring the person.
Ranting.
Like I probably just bored. Yeah, just ranting. But it's so true. And that's what really shits me when I listen to calls and the people don't handle the objections, when I can tell the person just needed a nudge in the right direction, because people really do give up on themselves. And I think it comes from two things. One, I've paid for my own leads. And I think a lot of salespeople just haven't paid for their own leads. I know you have, James, as well. I've paid for my leads. And I think it gives people a different perspective of the value of that phone call. And if you have an abundance of phone calls, if you have the privilege of working for an account that has an abundance of phone calls and you just fucking lazy out and can't be bothered like really pushing certain calls, that's unacceptable in my opinion. It does happen, but it's just an abundance issue, and it's because you've never paid for your own stuff. Like it doesn't happen to me. I'm too paranoid about everything falling to pieces. As you know, we can have heaps of money in the bank and I'm just like, fuck, it's all going to fall apart in a week. And it's not, but it's because I've spent so long in businesses that weren't making money or were breaking even that like I'm conditioned to be in sort of somewhat of a state where I have to be super hungry all the time.
Okay. So what's an analogy that I could use to get you out of that way of thinking and sell you on the idea to not do that?
Yeah.
What
the
would
problem
you
is
say?
I don't think it's a bad thing. So it's probably going to be pretty difficult to sway me right now that that's a problem because it causes me to over deliver every time. And my main thing is I want to under promise and over deliver. And I think that mindset right now keeps me in a state where I'm constantly trying to do better.
Okay. All right. So let's do this then. I'm applying. I want to work with you. Right. I'm in that same mindset that you are. I got the money there at the bank, but I don't want to spend it because I'm worried that it might not work. Sell me into it. How do you handle that?
Sell into what?
Whatever you want.
Like
coaching.
Sales training or something?
Yeah. So I'm you, like that analogy that you just put yourself, right? I have that same thought process where I'm afraid to take action because I've been preconditioned to things falling apart. How do you handle that using storytelling and analogies? Because that's the perfect way to wrap up this podcast.
Okay.
Put you on the spot.
Okay. Well, where are we at in the sales process?
I guess we're in the discovery phase, about to go into the pitch. I've given you the objection that I need to think about it because I'm not sure if it'll work. And you'll now need to close me on that.
Okay. All right. So I got to go. I've just pitched. You haven't given me the objection yet because it doesn't I have to set it up in a certain way.
For sure.
Okay. Perfect, man. So does that make sense? What I've kind of gone through there, that those sort of 4 pillars, that structure, does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And does that feel like it could be the answer for you?
Yeah, I think.
Is there anything is there anything in particular that you feel like is really going to kind of, I guess, take it to the next level? Or is there a specific thing in there that really helps?
Yeah, really just being able to close more deals at a high rate to bring in a constant revenue stream.
Okay, that makes sense. And is there anything in there in particular that you think will help you close at that higher rate?
The call reviews.
Okay, perfect. So that real nitty gritty coaching aspect of having somebody review your calls and go over it. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense, man. I suppose, dude, like from here, I don't have much else for you. Really, the next steps would be, and if you think it's appropriate, would be to organize your Sales Sniper coaching program with a Visa or a debit card, and then from there we can handle your onboarding, get you introduced to your coach, and get you some script writing sessions and all that kind of stuff. Would that be appropriate, or how would you like to proceed from here?
Yeah, we can have a chat about the price and see if it's something I'm willing to do.
Okay, I would have already given you the price, just so you know.
Cool.
So $10,000. We'll just say 10,000. It's 10,000. So
Yeah.
would that be appropriate, or how would you like to proceed from here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really kind of have to go away and think and make sure the numbers all add up, do my math, see if my close rate, as you said, will probably increase by 10%, what effect that has on the rest of the business, and see if we can drum up the numbers.
Okay, that makes sense, man. I suppose from what I'm hearing, it sounds like money might be the issue. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got the money there in the bank. It's just, there's a lot of things coming up. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. I suppose, if I'm honest with you, I'm not sure I want to spend it.
Okay, perfect. And so funding aside, if it was like, if you had 7 figures in the bank account and it wasn't an issue, would this be the right move for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Is there any reason why you think that?
Well, as we said with our sales, they're really up and down. I don't want another month.
So what do you mean up and down? Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Inconsistent close rates. So cash collected is 1 week really good, 1 week really bad. I don't want to commit to a program. Our guys commit to this learning process, And as a result, it takes them a while to get the hang of it. And therefore, close rates are down for a couple of months and we're struggling for cash flow.
Okay, so I suppose what I'm hearing is that you're sort of struggling to see the value in someone coming in and fixing it quickly. Is it more of a speed issue? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Not a speed issue. I guess it's more that I'm not sure if we're capable of taking that on and getting the results as described.
Okay, cool. Okay, that makes total sense. So you're just not sure that the process is going to give you the level of certainty that you want in order to invest your money. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what level of certainty would you like?
All of it.
All the certainty. So you'd like to be able to walk out of your house today and have a guarantee that you don't get hit by a bus.
I would love that.
Okay, cool. And do you think that's possible?
I bought a house away from bus stops.
Yeah? Okay, so you're doing everything in your life to mitigate risk.
I am, yes.
Okay, cool. And is your business where you want it to be?
Not yet.
Not yet. And okay, and I guess do you feel like your mindset around that kind of risk mitigation can possibly affect your decision making around your business?
Yeah, it's kind of a light bulb moment for me.
I suppose are you happy to allow that decision making process to dictate the results and the money that you make for you and your family kind of moving forward?
No.
Why not?
Well, it's just really gonna hold me back. I can't plan for a bus going off route and coming down my street, can I?
Okay, that makes sense. So I suppose, man, I just kind of want to know before we go any further. I suppose taking on these programs, like we hold you as the manager and the business owner and all the sales staff to a super high standard, and we expect a lot from them. I just want to make sure, are you okay with kind of being held to that higher standard and being, I guess, made to show up in the way that we think you need to show up to get the results that you need from your team?
Yeah.
Is there any particular reason why now is the right time for that?
Yeah, I suppose the money is there in the bank and we do need to get better. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. How did that feel from like an objective, no bullshit standpoint?
When I come back with that light bulb moment, even though this is a mock call, the way you handled that, it actually made me feel stupid for saying the things that I was saying. And I'm just like, fuck, you got me here. That's why I had to say, yeah, I'm in, because it felt uncomfortable putting up blocks against that. It was a very, very strong objection handle. And I actually felt comfortable giving you the information that you were after.
Yeah, so that's the key, right? So the key with objection handling, whether you're using reframes, analogies, stories, there's one key thing you have to do, and it's stop looking at it as an objection and turn it into a problem.
Yep.
Because objections are very hard to overcome, but problems are easy to solve. Between the two of us, we can come up with a problem. Now, if you didn't have the money, we could have come up with a problem for that. We could have used OPM, other people's money. We could have talked about leveraging debt. We could have used an analogy around, do you think that a building developer who makes hundreds of $1 million a year, do you think they use their own money to build that development? No, they don't. They use other people's money. They leverage debt so they can move forward in their business. If everybody used cash to do what they needed to do with their business, I hate to break it to you, there would not be many billion-dollar businesses around, or even $1 million or $100 million businesses. Most people have to leverage debt to
There probably wouldn't be houses for you to live in.
Exactly. So it's just kind of the way it is. And sometimes we just have to reframe people into seeing things from a different angle. And that's how they realize that their decision-making process is flawed. And we don't want them to question themselves as a person and everything that they do, because that's going to put too much mud in the waters and it's going to not allow them to have the clarity that they need in order to make a decision. But we need to have them question enough to put them in that buying pocket.
Yeah, and that reframe was probably more powerful than an analogy that I was trying to dig and get for the purpose of this podcast. And that reframe and logic trap, as what you used with Taylor Welch's, is that holding to a higher standard.
Yeah, so what I was trying to do is I had to turn the objection into a problem. Then I had to allow him to see that it was his decision-making process.
That's
that was
the
the
one.
problem. And then I wanted, once I'd kind of got a few steps of commitment and a few yeses that I was happy with, then I needed him to feel like he had to kind of sell me. Like, okay, well, are you, like with a skeptical tone, are you really ready for this, man? But if you say it like that, it comes off so much softer and it's so much more genuine than go, are you ready for this? We're going to fucking smash your business. And it doesn't come off well, but the tonality is so important in how the questions that you come and how the questions that you're saying come off and what the answers that you actually get.
Yeah. Our masterclasses on objection handling will be coming out soon. But even as someone just sitting on a podcast, I was genuinely questioning my decision-making abilities through that process. And I was just thinking, fuck, I've made some bad decisions in this area, as my brain was thinking about other stuff while talking to you. And I'm not even being sold anything. And that's how powerful that process of problem solving was and holding people to high standards.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty much my
salespeople
standard loop, if you want to call it a loop like that.
Yeah.
I do that every time and it works. I would say probably 90% of the time it works.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's really good as well because it's quite soft. It's strong but soft, if that makes sense. You get a lot of people who will do a micro commitment on the day at the very least and then not ghost. I haven't been ghosted doing that method and probably I thought I was ghosted the other day and then he came back to me. So
through meme.
Through Memeage. It was actually the Cameo. The Cameo is the one that did it.
Wham.
I had to go high level on that one. But yeah, guys, I hope that was helpful. Write that down, that objection handling stuff, because that'll make you some money.
Yeah, I thought that was quite good. You can see really the power of the analogies, the storytelling. We should have mentioned pre-frame or reframes at the start because we went into that in more detail.
Yeah. We go through that. Yeah. So yeah, guys, hope that was helpful. That's it for today. Nice 33-minute podcast. Please feel free to like, subscribe, review. Go onto our YouTube channel, Matt Ryder. Go onto our Facebook page, Sales Sniper. Like us on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure it's Matt Ryder again. We're on everywhere. Just speak your name into your smartphone and I'm sure that I'll pop up somewhere.
And if you're keen to learn that in more detail, that we can teach it on a podcast, search up the Closing Code group. We'll put the link in the description. We've got a $1 trial on right now. If not, just join the Facebook group, ask questions. We've got coaches in there happy to help. Hopefully you can take something out of it and see the training that goes into more depth than what we can do. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you have an awesome day. And as always, if you don't like it and you're at the end here, what are you doing with your life? All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.